Welcome to the Storied Outdoors. I'm your host, Brian Gill, along with my co-host, Brad Hill. And we are joined by an author that I follow, and I know many of you also do, New York Times bestselling author, Charles Martin. He's here with us today. A lot of you I know his work and are familiar with him. And I am so excited to have this conversation with him about the storied outdoors. Charles, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys inviting me on.
I want to be really transparent right out of the gate, Charles. I didn't know who you were, man. I'm sorry. But I started.
That does not surprise me. Sometimes this is the 20, depending upon how you slice it, it's either the 22nd or 24th year of my career.
Yeah.
And I've written about 20, again, how you count it, 22 to 24 books. Sometimes I still feel like the best kept secret in town.
Well, when I saw some titles now, then it was like, oh, okay, now I know who you're talking about. And so it wasn't as like, I have no idea who this guy was. But then when I saw, I was like, oh, that's who you're talking about. And then I took some time to go and listen. I listened to you on Annie F. Downs' podcast, and we really enjoyed that. And then I was talking to a guy named Brian Carpenter with Refuge. That's who I was with out in Wyoming, who says to tell you hello, by the way.
Yeah, great brother. Brother.
We had a fantastic experience out there, retreat in Refuge in Wyoming, and we had a wonderful time. But I'm excited to hear, like you said, you've written a lot of stories, and one of the things that we talk about in the introduction of our podcast is a podcast somewhere between Lewis and Tolkien and Lewis and Clark. We want to find clarity in the stories we tell and the adventures that shape us. And sort of one of the questions I want to launch into with you, Charles, is you're writing a lot of stories. And as you were sharing before we started recording, you get immersed into stories. And how do your own stories begin to, you start to, I know you don't want to write as you're maybe perhaps the character, because from what I understand, there's some pretty cool characters that you've written about, and you don't see yourselves as, some of these guys that are doing whatever they're doing. But are there parts of yourself in your stories, and have you, through this process, been shaped through all of these stories that you've written?
All right, let me give you a couple answers. First is y'all talk about being somewhere between Lewis and Tolkien. When I finished up, I went to grad school and got a master's, and then they, for some reason, let me in the doctoral program. And I got to study writers for a couple of years and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And for me, really, grad school was a get out of jail free card with my father-in-law, because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I didn't really know how I was going to take care of his daughter, but he thought grad school gave me credibility and a master's was cool. And then when they took me in the PhD program, he was like, well, certainly this young man knows what he's doing and he can take care of my daughter. I had no idea what I was doing. But anyway, it gave me some space, and I got to study writers. And I mean, there are people who know Lewis and Tolkien far better than I, but I did spend some time studying them, and I fell in love with them. I mean, I loved them both before they became popular in kind of this day and age. And on my comprehensive exams, finishing up my doctoral coursework, before they let me loose to go write my dissertation, I had, in their comps, you have 8 questions over 2 days, 4 a day. And my last question was one sentence. And the question was this. It came from my philosophy professor. Lewis, Tolkien, Steinbeck, and Hemingway are transported via time to a bar in London. Transcribe their conversation. And that was it. And so it was a total softball pitch to me, because I knew, their philosophies of man, and I knew their philosophies of language and those theories and all of those things we talked about in grad school. And I'd also read a lot of their stuff, and I'd read a lot of stuff about them. So for me, I literally wrote 2.5 hours in dialogue. I never wrote a single sentence of narrative. I just wrote totally the whole thing in quotes, back and forth, jabbing. And I think I finished it with Lewis telling Tolkien he was going to go have a pint. He'd see those fellas later. Anyway, so I have a great deep love of.
Yes. I would love to read that transcript.
Both of those. I'm afraid of what it looks like today, but it was a great was a lot of fun. And especially when I got to my oral defense, those guys, that's all they wanted to talk about was that question. But I think you asked me, if I can back up to your original question, where have I seen me in my stories, or where do I sort of, bubble up? Any first time writer, I don't care who they are, any first novelist, there's going to be something autobiographical in that, whether it's emotive, whether it's personal, whether it's descriptive, whether it's character driven, plot, something. We have to write what we know. Currently, like I got up from my computer a little bit ago to come do this. I'm working on my 16th novel. By the time I got about 7 or 8 novels in, my rabbit's trick hat of all the stuff about me that I'd sort of been dribbling out slowly in all of my stories, I was pretty much empty. I had done me. So when you get about to 8 or 9, you start seeing me write really from a place of real creative freedom, where I'm just pulling stuff out of the air. Now, granted, a lot of my female characters are very much the same. And some days, some grad school kid will come along and do some Freudian psychoanalysis thing on me and look at all my female characters, and they'll really realize that I only have one character, and she looks a whole lot like Christy, and that's because she and I've been married 28 years, and I really only have experience with one woman, and I'm thankful for that. So, as long as readers will let me keep writing that sort of same female, I'm going to keep doing it, because in order for me to get experience elsewhere, that's not a good thing, and I don't want to do that. And so,
it's a hard sell.
If you look back to my early books, you look at like The Dead Don't Dance or Wrapped in Rain or When Crickets Cry, those are my first 3 books. You'll see a lot more, the characters would respond a lot more like I would or do in life. I didn't know what else to do. Actually, when I first started writing The Dead Don't Dance, I made the conscious choice. I was sitting there first just starting. This is in grad school in 1997. I said, I don't want to, I knew it was going to be a love story, and I knew it was going to be a tender love story. So I didn't want to let any of you all in my house and kind of know what was going on with me and Christy. So I wrote through the character's eyes, and all my books are first person. So I wrote first person, but I described, or I talked about, or I had dialogue with a female that I created or I made up. And I got about 40 pages in, and she was like cardboard and one-dimensional, maybe two-dimensional at best. And I didn't like her, and I certainly didn't want to be married to her. So I went back in and I deleted every part of that book that involved her. And I said, okay, I'm gonna write what I know. And Christy pretty much landed on the pages of my book. Matter of fact, when I got to book 2, which is Wrapped in Rain, my grandmother called the house and asked to speak to Maggie, who was the female protagonist in my book that looks a whole lot like Christy. So in answer to your question, there's a lot of me, like any writer, that bubbles up, and you all, if you knew me and hung out with me, you'd see it. Now, as you transition maybe into more of a career, like by the time I get to Thunder and Rain or Water from My Heart or A Life Intercepted, I'm kind of out of those tricks, but I'm still the same writer, and I'm still writing from the same emotive place. So while my style or my craft may have changed, maybe my economy of words is better. I think you could probably read the dialogue in all of those books, and you'd still hear the same voice and the same decision-making process, and hopefully the same tenderness, and hopefully the same sense of humor. And I mean, even today with the way I write, I still hear the same voice that sat down 25 years ago to start writing. I mean, it's still me. It's still Charles. So yeah. Now, the second part there's another part of your question, which I don't know. I can't remember if you asked me or not, but it's inevitable to show up somewhere in this conversation, which is like, what have your books taught you? Like, where do they?
Yeah, have you changed as a result of them?
There you go. That's another version of the question. I don't know that I have a good answer. Christy might, but let me try it this way. People come to me and they think, they know me because they read these books and they spend 8 or 10, 12 hours in a book, and they fall in love with my characters, and they think they know me. I'm not liking that. I do love that transaction, but the truth is I'm writing characters that I wish I was. I'm writing vicariously. I'm creating people who are more noble, more truthful, more self-sacrificial, they laugh more quickly. They forgive much more quickly, and so I'm reminded, I guess I'm not always aware of the answer to your question, but I can say this. I wrote a book called Send Down the Rain about a Vietnam veteran who has a secret. And if he tells the secret, somebody dies. And if he doesn't tell the secret, somebody dies. It's a really tough place to be. And he's probably the most self-sacrificial character I've written, next to Ella Rain out of my second novel. And I go back and I look at that book and I think, man, am I like that? Do I have a heart like that? Do I lay down for people like that? The answer is no. But it's kind of fun to be challenged by my own characters. And that at some point there's a part in me that desires that. I would love to think that, we said this a few minutes ago, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. I've been labeled Christian fiction. I don't like the label. I don't think it's helpful. But Lewis actually said, what we need is not more writers of Christian fiction. We need Christians who write fiction with their Christianity latent. And I do like that. So I guess my books have taught me a lot, especially when you get into these latter ones. And, I turned a corner about 8 years ago, probably in my career. We can talk more about that later, but just in terms of me sort of loosening the reins and saying, Lord, it's not about me. It's not about the New York Times. It's really about your glory, period.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, and you answered it beautifully about, you consider yourself a Christian author or an author who is Christian. And, I mean, I think that's exactly where, people who put an emphasis on Jesus, I feel like that's kind of where you land, is you want to be a good steward of what the gifts he's given you, whether you're considered a Christian author or not. I mean, your faith is going to come through your writing because it's authentic. It's who you are. And that's incredible. So you mentioned this a little bit. What is it like for you to be a considered, one of the best in your genre, in the writing world, as a New York Times bestseller? I mean, what is that like? I mean, how has that changed you, or has it changed you, or what does it do to you and your writing?
Writing book, anybody who's written a book, and certainly anybody who's written books, plural, unless they have a gift that I've never experienced, well, they will tell you that writing books is one of the most humbling things a human being can do, because you can't ride on yesterday's coattails. Every day I show up to an empty page. And books don't write themselves. Like right now, I'm 75% of the way through a novel in that room in there. And if I don't go back in there and sit back down, it just ends up as an unfinished novel. I don't know. I guess I don't know how people perceive me. I quit reading my reviews years ago because it's not healthy. I don't read Amazon reviews. Christy handles my social media. And, if somebody writes a note or something to me, she gives it to me. And I don't, number one, I don't have time. I don't have the mental bandwidth. It's not healthy. And I will read 100 reviews that are great. And then I'll read one bad one, and I'll spend 6 days thinking about the bad one. Like, why am I letting that live rent free in my mind? So I don't know if it has changed me. Christy would be the best one to answer that. But I think she would tell you, if I do one thing really well, it's that I show up and I put my fanny in that chair and I spend the time, because I've said this before, but I sweat my books more than I write them, and I'm a better rewriter than I am writer. If I could just get it on the page, I can always go back and make it sound better. I don't know, the whole New York Times thing, while I'm grateful for it, it's sort of a fleeting shadow. It's there's an algorithm to hitting the times list. And I think we got really fortunate twice and it hit it. And we've worked really hard on 14 other books. And I know that we've had the sales to do it. And I know that we've had the numbers to do it. And we still haven't hit it. And
That's so interesting.
you know, what am I going to do with that? I can raise my hand and shake my fist and, you know, it's unfair. Well, there are 100,000 people who would trade places with me in a heartbeat. So it doesn't do me a lot of good to spend time.
Yeah.
One of my books was made into a movie, and that was a both fun and painful process.
Oh, I bet.
There's another one in process now with some really good folks, and I do have more input on that one. But I don't know. I feel like I write well. I feel like my craft has improved. I feel like I'm writing good stories. Where do I stack up against other writers? I have no idea because I don't spend a lot of time with them. I'm not where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Michener wrote 4 or 5 novels after the age of 80, and his books were 400,000 words apiece. So I'm encouraged that there's a lot of work yet ahead of me.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about those things because they don't write books.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
The accolades and the awards and all that. They don't walk in my office and all of a sudden put words on a page.
There you go. Charles, I got a good friend. You guys get along. He's a professor for Colorado Christian University, but Dr. Travis Buchanan. But he wrote his PhD work was called Story as Sacrament, or Truth Incarnate, How Story Can Become Sacrament, based on the writings of C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien. Essentially, how their writing and their story became sacrament and worship, essentially, for these guys. Have there been moments where you've experienced that sort of a feeling as you've been writing, or maybe perhaps completing a story, where it's clear you write for the Lord? You know, whatever we do as word or deed, we do as unto the Lord, right? And it's clear that you seem to be doing that. But is there a time when you've like, man, this is of the Lord, and I'm doing what the Lord's created me to do, and felt that experience?
I don't know that I'm always that aware of it. I feel like maybe sometimes when we're functioning in our gift, and we really, you know, the word says that it's the altar that sanctifies the gift. So if we lay our gift on the altar, then the Lord will sanctify it. And I've done that a bunch. I've sat down many a time and prayed, you know, Psalm 45, my tongue is the pen of a ready writer. Let me make your name known, your great name known to the nations. And then I just set off and get to work. And I don't sit there thinking about, well, how do I make that sound like this? Or, you know, what Lord are you? I just don't get all caught up in that, because that is not freedom within the gift.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lord gave it to me to enjoy, and to be enjoyed by him, and to be enjoyed by others. Mm-hmm. And so that does not mean it's not hard work. And that doesn't mean there are days when I don't feel like I'm pulling a tractor trailer through a quagmire. But I'm not necessarily sitting there trying to have this conscious thought about how it fits into, you know, my walk with the Lord. I'm really trying to tell a love story. And in every case that, and again, when somebody does the whole Freudian thing, they'll figure out really simply, my books are basically one story arc. How do we get a character that starts from a place of broken to a place of not broken? And that's what I do. That space from broken to not. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's always tied up in a nice, neat little bow, but there usually is something redeeming and freedom bringing. I do love that about it. There have been days, and people have asked me, you know, they tell me they cry when they read my stories, and they ask me almost as if they're going to be surprised by the answer. But they ask me, they say, have you ever cried when you've written a story? I'm like, dude, I've cried my face off like a teenage girl watching The Notebook. Are you kidding me? I mean, there have literally been times where I've been writing and I've had to stop because I couldn't see the screen. I'm crying so hard. And if they don't touch me, how are they in the world? Are they going to touch you? So I don't know. I'm just, you know, still in touch with my feminine side, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But they do move me, and I'm grateful for that. I love that. Those are the moments when I know I can't necessarily tell you that it's worship, but those are the moments when I can tell you that this is a pure thing.
Like that.
And something about this is good.
That's good. I love it.
That's so refreshing. Charles, we talk a lot about the outdoors on this, and your books have such a strong sense of the outdoors. And I mean, gosh, Mountain Between Us, it was what, 90% in the outdoors, and all of your books have a strong sense of place. How has your life being an outdoorsman, a bow hunter, all of these types of things that you do in the outdoors, how has that helped to write your stories and your settings?
Well, Walker Percy used to have a phrase where he said that's a little bit like asking a fish to describe water. He can't. He knows neither its presence nor its absence. It just is.
It just is.
So I don't always know. I mean, I grew up, on the river. We fished. My dad took me hunting when I was 5. I've shot and eaten a lot of deer, and I continue to do that. And I plan on doing a lot more. Bow hunting is a serious passion. I fell in love with Matthews bows years ago, and I've since gotten to know Matt McPherson, and I've been up and toured the facility up in Sparta, Wisconsin. And I mean, I'm not brand loyal to many things, but Matthews, I probably am.
There you go.
This episode
brought to you by Matthews Bows.
I have a mission
time out there.
I have a mission. The Matthew Mission bow.
Well, do y'all know that the reason that bow is called Mission is because the umbrella company that produced it is held under Matthews. So is Genesis, and all of the proceeds from Mission and Genesis goes to fund missions around the world.
Yeah, that's why. That was actually why I got that one, because it's a fantastic bow, but it's also going to a better cause. And
Matt McPherson is the real deal. And I asked him, I said, one of these days we were talking, I said, I'm crazy about your stuff, but why do you do what you do? And he said, because it lets me fund missions around the world.
Come on.
Period. And I mean,
awesome.
Okay. So I spend a lot of time in the woods. It's I would probably lose my ever-loving mind if I did not. And I don't know how I used to have to travel to New York, a couple times a year to meet with my publisher, and the plane would land, and there's like this little ticking clock in my head that's about 48 hours long. And if my stay in New York City lasts longer than that, I get fidgety, and I don't know how people do it. It's like a concrete world. I just have to walk out in Central Park and sit down and talk to the pigeons or something. I don't know. Some of my best memories are from being in the woods. One of my earliest is my grandfather walking me to the deer stand. And I was 8, 9 years old. And my grandfather's walking ahead of me. And the walk was we were walking into this big oak hammock, and the walk was over a half mile from the truck. And it's dark. I mean, it's 4:30 in the morning. And he walked, and we're winding through these. I mean, it's this long serpentine, circuitous path. We're walking through streams and over stuff. And he finally gets me to my little ladder stand, puts me up there, hands me my rifle, gives me thumbs up, and he leaves. And I'm sitting there in the dark. And I was fine. It didn't bother me. I loved it. But I'm sitting there in the dark thinking to myself, how did he know where he was going? Because he was holding the flashlight behind him, so I would see where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
That's my first memory of hunting, is following him through the woods, and he would walk with the flashlight behind him because he knew where he was going. Wow. And so, I mean, I got, all of us who love the woods got stuff like that, but
I love it.
Maybe that's part of my love.
Man, I love that. One of the things that that Brad and I feel, we do out in the outdoors is that's kind of where we experience God. Not that doesn't take the place of our local church. It doesn't take the place of our fellowship with other believers, but God really does feel closer whenever we're in the outdoors experiencing his creation. And sometimes that's our Sabbath. That's where we find rest. What is that like for you? Do you have a place that you go? Do you have a thing that you do in the outdoors that helps you to connect with our Creator?
No, not like I wish I did. And I'm not good at Sabbath. I used to be better, but I've written 6 books in 36 months and my schedule's been crazy.
Gravy.
It's been a lot. And so one of the things Christy and I are praying about right now, and one of the things we're praying about is a farm. I want a farm, and I want a place to do that. I want a place, with acreage and a cabin, and I want a place to do Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I want a place to do ministry and take folks and love on them. And I don't want a place to go walk out in the woods and be with my Jesus. And I don't have that. And so it is like an active prayer. And I've told the Lord, like, look, if I've made this an idol, I'm sorry. But you're going to have to come take this desire because I am not getting it here. And I know me and I'm burning the candle at both ends, and I need some place of Sabbath and rest, and I don't have it. And I realize there are other places I could ask people to go, but there's just something different. So I've been asking him, like, Lord, would you figure this out? This is really art. This is like a real thing that we desire. So that's something we're praying about. I am looking forward to finding that. I can tell you that. And I am jealously pursuing that place. And when I find it, you will know it, because my work will probably get better.
I hear you. That's awesome, man. Would love to have a farm space like that. We just finished reading. We're fortunate to have an advanced copy of Andrew Peterson's book that's coming out called The God of the Garden. And by the time it'll be coming out around the time this podcast will probably be, we'll publish it, so I can say that. But man, it was really cool to hear, some of the things that he shared about his own garden. They had that place in Nashville, and it was really encouraging to hear, and made me want a garden. I mean, I grew up in Monroeville, Alabama, a tiny little town in Alabama, and we lived out, we had woods, we had property. And I think looking back, that was my introduction to the outdoors, and how much I love being outside was developed there in that place. And I see the importance of that. But I would also, coming back from Wyoming, I was ready to pull up stakes and be in Wyoming after I got back, man.
Go west, young man.
Yeah. I don't think my wife would have been all about the snow, though, because from what Brian and them say, it gets pretty deep out there in Wyoming.
I don't know a whole lot about what I'm about to tell you, but I do have this thought, and I've had it a long time, and nobody can convince me otherwise. But I do think there is in each of us, and Eldridge talks about this some, there is in each of us a longing to be in a place that's created by God simply for his pleasure, with him, primarily alone. And that looks a whole lot like a garden. And I think that longing is probably still residue from having been created to live in a garden with a woman and walk in the cool of the mornings in the presence of the Lord. And so,
yes,
if not, I'm still saying that to justify my desire for a farm.
Now I all of a sudden want to.
Sounds like a pretty good justification.
Yeah, I think I need a farm too. They're hard to find around Birmingham, though.
I would imagine. Yeah,
gonna have to get out of Birmingham for that one, bro.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned that you're 75% into a manuscript. Is that something that you can share with the world yet, or is that something that's to be?
I wrote a book 2 years ago. Well, I published a book 2 years ago called The Waterkeeper, a story about a guy named Murphy Shepard who is pretty good at rescuing lost or kidnapped people, primarily those being trafficked And then when I got halfway into that book, I said to my publisher, "Hey, I think I've got a character for the first time that I make it spin into a trilogy. Would you be open to that?" And she said, "Sure." So after The Water Keeper, I wrote The Letter Keeper, and now The Record Keeper will come out next year, about June or so of next year.
That's awesome.
That's the book that I'm working on now. It'll be the third installment, the end of the trilogy. Will it be the end of Murphy Shepherd? You'll have to read it to find out.
I'm in the middle of Waterkeeper right now, and I can't wait to get finished with it so that I can read Letterkeeper. So it's I love that. I'm excited that there's going to be a third.
That's awesome. Well, Charles, one of the things we always like to ask our folks is what's the adventures that shape us. We've talked about that. We talked about that a little in your story, but so now we're not talking about writing. What's Charles's next adventure? I mean, bow season is right around the corner.
Well, yeah. Trust me, a lot of people are addicted to social media. I don't have it on my phone, but I will happen to tell you that my covert camera sends me pictures. I have 3 of them. They send me pictures every morning, and I do drink my coffee looking at the pictures. And so that to me is a lot of fun. I think the adventure that's on the horizon for Christy and me is this. Reeves is our youngest, and we leave here a week from today and bring him up your way to Sanford and drop him off at college. And he's great. He's probably our most well-adjusted of the 3. He's our most extroverted. He's picked a great school. We are really excited for him. But we're going to leave there Friday and be empty nesters. And we love our kids. And I think in a right way, we have spent certainly the last 24 years of our lives raising children, bring them up in the fear of the Lord. I think that's what we've attempted to do, to, just show them the one that we love, and they love him. So while our job's not by any means finished, they're not in this house, and Christy and I are going to come home to an empty house with, the absence of noise. And I think there'll be a little bit of an adjustment there, maybe even some sadness. I'm grateful for FaceTime. I mean, the good news is, though, that I love my wife, and I'm not, I know some of my friends that have gotten to this place and they've spent all of their life just medicating the pain in their marriage through, but what are we going to do with the kids? And then the kids leave, and then they look at each other and they go, "I really don't know you, and I certainly don't want to be married to you." And I'm thankful that is not my case, with Christy. And so I don't know what the next years will bring in terms of us and what adventure, but I know it'll be us. I mean, it's been 28 years of adventure thus far. And
right.
There's a lot about my story I haven't told, but we wouldn't be having this conversation without Christy's, just gut level encouragement. And the Lord gave her real faith when I didn't have any. And so, I don't know what that adventure will be, but it'll be fun. That'll be us. And then I'm looking forward to the spontaneity. Prior to kids, there was, we were like, "Hey, what do you want to do tonight?" And and I'm looking forward to that. So, and I'm also hopeful that there'll be a farm somewhere in that short-term adventure.
And the stories that'll come out of that farm. I can't wait.
Yeah, man. Well, how can people follow your work? I mean, we have some people that were a lot like me, Charles, that didn't really know you that well, but how can they follow your work, and how can we help you to be known better? Make you the least kept secret.
You can, my website is charlesmartinbooks.com. You can find all my books there. I'm all over Amazon. Just search for Charles Martin. I have a page with, again, all my stuff. On social media, Storied Career, both on Facebook and Instagram. And I have a sort of a social media is something that I do because in this day and age, if I don't, I'm even a better kept secret. And I get that, but it doesn't help. Like, spending my time thinking about how to get more followers and how to get people to like me, or it doesn't help me do what the Lord's called me to do. So finding some balance there has been healthy for me. I'm not anti it. I know what my gift is, and it is not me filming myself. Trust me. But that's where you can find me.
Well, we'll be sure to share it, man. I'm looking forward to getting into some of your books, brother.
Well, Charles, we love meeting new people, especially people that we kind of have a little bit of knowledge about, and it's been a great conversation, and I hope that you get one of those deer that maybe have popped up on your camera, on your phone. You're a much better bow hunter than I am. I have the bow, I have all the equipment. I'm just not very good at it. And so
I did see talking about the social media and you talking about the camera. I did see a little funny video that gave me the giggles. I think I shared it with you, Brian, but some poor guy took a taxidermy deer off the wall and was messing with his buddy. He's like holding it right around the edge of the camera where he just saw like the horn and the ear. And he said the guy left work and went to hunt that deer. I was like, man, that is dirty, man.
Yeah,
that's cold.
Dirty.
That's cold.
Bad.
So maybe the ones that you're seeing are not somebody messing with you, but deer that you'll get to encounter out in the woods this season.
Well, Brad, you're much better at closing it out for us.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I'm so thankful. I'm always thankful for these conversations, man. I'm better for them, and that's one of the reasons we love to do this. Brian and I said from the outset, if no one ever listens to these, but we get to have these conversations, and our kids have this wealth of things to listen to when they hear their dads talking and sharing and hearing about Jesus, and that'll be a wealth. I wish I had those things with my own dad, but it's been more than that, man. We've been so blessed by messages from people. I think we have about 300 regular listeners, and we don't make anything off of this. None of this is like, we're not trying to make money. We're just trying to build the kingdom and put some content out there that's really encouraging to folks to listen to, maybe expose them to some new writers, new books, and new stories. And hopefully all of these stories and these conversations will encourage people not only to write their own stories, but perhaps share their own adventures in the storied outdoors. So we're thankful for folks to listen. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, man, if you want to help us out, write us a review. We'll probably read them. I'm not good at not reading them yet, but we'll probably read them because we need those reviews to grow the podcast. That's really the only request that we make, is that you give us a rating and a review so that you help other people find this podcast. So we're thankful for your help and thankful for this conversation.